All right, well, thank you very much for the, Elise just asked me, do you usually have a band at your trail opening? So, you know, this is the first kind of trail, I guess, dedication or opening we've really had, but I think it's significant, so it is, and thank you very much. I think everybody really appreciate that. So, don't be worried, it's just one page. I wanted to introduce our council member Debbie Lester here, who's been a real champion of non-motorized pathways. Thank you very much for your hard work. Debbie, just so you know, she's been putting in a lot of work off the island at regional planning meetings in Seattle and Port Orchard, and really trying to get more attention on Bainbridge as a regional destination for non-motorized funding to make it safer for all of us to get around. We don't need to introduce Paul. I mean, my name's John Grinter, and I chair the city's Non-Motorized Transportation Advisory Committee, and you know, we serve to advise the council on non-motorized issues, and we also serve the kind of eyes and ears of the community. And one of the roles that's interesting with our committee is we've been designated or tasked also with advocating for the implementation of the non-motorized plan. So, and that plan comprises, you know, more obviously the built facilities you see along roadways and sidewalks, the hard surfaces, but these pathways are an integral part of that plan. And I just wanted to, you know, share why and kind of the why about this trail and some of the history of how it got here. The pathway is over 1,300 feet long, and probably about almost 1,400 feet in length. It was built with 2 layers of gravel, totaling about 5 or 6 inches, a bigger gravel underneath, and then about 3 inches of smaller surface that will really pack down nice and hard, so it's a good rideable surface for kids on bikes or people on bikes, walkers.
The cross-country team.
Yeah.
You've used it already.
Yeah.
Right.
It's part of the city's non-motorized transportation plan. It started really in 2008 when the city and Bethany reached an agreement about having a trail. The implementation was delayed a few years. You know, the turmoil in the markets and the financial situation just, you know, put it on hold for a little while. But our committee realized here's something that's shovel ready. It's waiting to happen, and we had a great situation with the church, so we put it in last year. Council had allocated funding for it, and with a volunteer component being really important to that. So the pathway, it's a really vital link on a corridor running down the spine of the island with the Sportsman's Club as the kind of the central anchor point. To the north, directly from here, we see the pathway going, at least initially, will kind of continue probably right alongside the road because there's a wetland down there. We're working and talking with the Sportsman's Club itself, which is the next parcel where the pond is. And then beyond that, we've got a conversation that's been happening with the Commodore neighbors, the Commodore West neighborhood. They have a stormwater retention facility that butts up against the Sportsman's Pond, you know, and so when we connect those 2 pieces, we'll be able to get to the next section of the pathway that we built 3 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, that comes down from Commodore West. And I don't know if you've seen that one, but kids use it all the time, and they're able to get off of the road. So beyond that, to the north, the plan is to connect behind Sakai Woodward schools. We're talking to the school district, and this is where it gets exciting. You see the Sportsman's Club itself, okay, that makes sense, it gets kids to school, but why is it part of the bigger thing? Behind the Sakai Woodward schools, it goes all the way to Wardwell Avenue. That's a big parcel of land that goes to Wardwell, which is a nice low-volume road, low-traffic road that connects then to the Grand Forest East, the Grand Forest West via the new Hilltop property, to Miggs Farm to the north. I mean, it's you know, there's one piece of property between all of Winslow and all these park attributes, so it's pretty amazing, and it's owned by the schools, and they want to play. So that's exciting. To the south from here, we're literally just 2 easements away, and I think they're going to be friendly to connecting all the way to Linwood Center via the Lost Valley, which is 40 acres of open space down at the head of the bay, and then Island Center Road, another like nice quiet road that takes you to Gadsden Lake, which takes you down the Peters Trail to Linwood Center. So it's really, when you count up the number of connections between here and, you know, from Grand Forest East and really Battle Point Park all the way to Linwood Center, we're looking at, you know, 4 or 5 agreements that have to be reached, and most of those are with friendly folks. So it's kind of exciting.
Who are the unfriendly ones?
I'll email you. We'll go on the warm. Anyway, we'll figure that out. But nobody really. I mean, being respectful with people's property rights is obviously that's a big part of it. But you know, you have to have the long-term plan, and things change. So why separated pathways and trails? It's to provide a viable and safe transportation alternative that parents will feel comfortable letting their children use, as well as just themselves. So you're not on a busy road, you're off of it. They take advantage of existing large tracts of public land, including parks, open spaces, and low traffic roads to create an interconnected network for much of the island. Not all of the island, but a lot of it. You'll be able to reach out and tap into this network. Pathways and trails, when you're using open spaces and parks and low volume roads, we can mitigate some of the steep hills we have on the island. And so you have more room to create a pathway that traverses the hillside rather than going straight up and down it. And we see that as a real impediment for people that go out on their bikes on the island or to let their kids ride. You know, it's steep. I mean, I see more people maybe pushing their bikes up hills than there are kids riding. So I'm hoping that we can do that. One other point is that if we have a built-out network of trails, it serves not just us, but it could be a real regional draw for people that live in Seattle to walk or coast downhill from Capitol Hill on their bikes onto the ferry and come and visit our island as a kind of a captive audience and contribute to the coffers of our stores and businesses on the island. So trails and cities with trail networks, actually it's an amazing economic engine. It's proven all over the place. And lastly, and this kind of speaks to what you were saying, is like pathways can be built with volunteer labor at a fraction of the cost, but it's kind of like building pathways that can be done by hand. It's like a barn race in a sense. You know, we don't really build barns too much anymore, but when you build pathways like this, and for instance, a few years ago we built Lakely Harbor to Fort Ward Trail, and it's 1.2 miles long, and we had a ton of high school kids. That was like 6 or 7 years ago. You know, it's not going to be too many more years where those kids are going to be coming back and hopefully walking with their kids and saying, I built this, you know, and knowing that they built something not just for the present, but for the future. So, the cost of materials and a little bit of paid labor was about $8,000 for the gravel. There's about 65 yards of gravel down. And in-kind contributions totaled over $7,000. So we almost had a 50-50 split there. $6,000 worth of donated machine time and about 130 hours of volunteer labor, much of which came from Bethany's members. And I just want to thank, obviously, Pastor Paul. Ray Keeney's not here. Joe is here. Jeff Severson, Dennis Harris. You know, a lot of other volunteers who I never got a chance to meet from Bethany, but they came out, and we mainly worked on clearing up the old Christmas tree area so that when people are walking on it, they get a sense that it's open and not, you know, there's not dark woods right next to the trail, so hopefully it feels safe for people. And of course, we can't forget Patty Olson, who's been with this the whole time, you know, from the original agreement to like telling these guys, it's time to go, you know, she's an organizer, I'm sure you know. And let's hope she's having a great time in Machu Picchu right now. And I just want to recognize for the machine work, Dale Flodine donated, you know, hours and hours of work on this tractor. Dave Monsis, another longtime islander, came in with his machine. John Westerland with the tree service came and picked up a ton of material. That's, you know, a lot of time. And probably the biggest single contributor was Puget Sound Energy, who came and took out 32 of the old Christmas trees that were underneath the power lines. And that was probably about I valued it around $4,000. It might have been more than that because they had to manage the traffic and it was expensive. So Shauna Kozad and Tom Probst from PSC, and then our volunteers, Lori Rice from the Non-Motorized Committee, Ed Hager, who's been a relentless volunteer, and his son, Jared. There's Jared. Hey, Jared. Brian Chase, Zach Anderson, Mark and Brody Lawrence, some kids from the Scout Troop here, from Appalachia, and the Open Space Commission was really involved with the initial agreement here, so they put in a lot of work. My two boys, Jackson and Andrew, helped flag out the trees for PSC to remove. And at the city, we've just had great support from Christine Brown, Chris Hammer, Sonny Ballou, and the rest of the crew up at the Public Works Station. So it really was a real fun, collaborative effort, and I think something that we look forward to having more of. So.